Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our International Student Panel, which will conclude a wonderful International Education Week that we've just had. Unfortunately, Anna, who assembled this panel and prepared these questions, is not going to be able to join us today, so I'm stepping in to ask her wonderful questions to our wonderful guests today. And as I just mentioned to the panelists, the goal here is just to learn a little bit and have a conversation about intercultural and international experiences, and hopefully help our viewers and participants just kind of understand a few different perspectives and hopefully just share some good stories too. So I think it's going to be fun, and I'm very excited to hear what each of you have to share with us today. And like I said, if there's something that I don't ask or that you want to talk about, chime in. That this can be kind of a loose discussion today. Sound good? Okay. All right. Well, let's start with the first question that I am very curious to hear what you guys think about, which is, what was something different or maybe surprising that you saw or experienced when you first came to the US? So this could be US culture, this could be things people did, this could be food, anything like that. But what was just something that surprised you or that was very different from your home country? Whoever would like to go first.
I can go.
Yeah, go ahead.
My experience is a little bit weird because I was there for like a week. Right now I am in Kazakhstan. Something that was different was just like everything, like all the food is sweeter. Even bread, like just like plain white bread, it's like a lot sweeter. And it took me a while to get used to. So I'd like pair everything I ate with like something very bitter, like coffee or tea, to just kind of like counteract that. And then as soon as I got used to it, I left the US, and then I had to get used to the food here and be like, okay, no, this isn't supposed to be that sweet.
That's a great point. And actually, I apologize because I forgot to have everyone introduce themselves, but maybe when you answer, can you guys introduce yourself? And Alex, this is perfect. Can you just briefly tell us who you are and your where you are, which is maybe different?
So hi everyone, my name is Alex. I'm right now in Kazakhstan, Central Asia, and I'm going to be here until next fall, which is very sad. Um, a little about me: I'm 17. I'm a psychology major, and also like generally just putting that out there, I am the SGA's international representative. So if you have any issues like as international students, please come to me, like for anything.
Good person to know. Oh, and one last question. So it's like 1 o'clock right now, Eastern Standard Time. What time is it in Kazakhstan?
It's pretty decent comparatively. It's 12:10 a.m.
12:10 a.m. Okay. All right, well, good. Well, yeah, let's just kind of keep that going, guys. So when you answer a question, just briefly introduce yourself and say where you're coming from. We'll go with that plan. Anybody else have something to share? Like, what was something interesting, different, surprising when you came to the US?
Hey, my name is Nemeka Nwosisi. I am Nigerian. I'm also an international student. I'm a junior in Oglethorpe with a dual degree in physics and mechanical engineering. Right now I'm staying in Atlanta, but like I'm staying with my family here in Atlanta. But the main thing, well, like it's really minute, like it's really small, but like it's the way like people drink from the water fountain. So like I remember I remember playing basketball with my friends, and like when I wanted to drink, the first thing I did was like I used the water to like wash my hands, and then like I kind of like used my hands to drink from the water, and then like all of them was so confused. But like back home in Nigeria and like also in England, that's how most of them do it. Like you just like use your hand and like drink from it, and then like it was weird because they just like kind of bent their head and like you know almost sucking the water from the fountain. So yeah, that was one weird thing for me.
Wait, so you push the button with one hand and put in the cup?
Yeah, so like exactly, so like you're like drinking it like this, so your mouth doesn't touch the water fountain itself.
That's probably actually more hygienic.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. Never heard that before. This is my favorite question because it always goes in unexpected ways. It's never what I think. Anybody else have a experience like that?
Mine has to do with food as well. When I first moved, I'm Grace from Australia. I'm currently living in Atlanta though. But my first experience of when I came to the US was in like a small town in Virginia. And there was only fast food in the town I was in. There was nothing else, like no local cafes or restaurants. And like in Australia, everyone like there's more local cafes and restaurants than there are fast food, and everyone sort of looks down on fast food. Whereas here, everyone just like their go-to food is fast food. So that was like a rude shock for me.
Is there any fast food that you found you like more than others, or some that you tend to avoid?
I avoid Waffle House,
Oh no, it's a
Denny's,
staple.
Arby's. Like I'll usually only go to like McDonald's or Burger King because everything else is like, to me, it just like grosses me out a bit.
Do you find they're consistent, the flavor and taste and options between like, other parts of the world, like Australia versus Virginia McDonald's? Is it pretty much the same menu or different?
Well, I'm vegetarian and like all the food here, like there's no vegetarian option. Like they've just introduced it this year. Whereas like in Australia and when I studied abroad in the UK, like there was so many vegetarian options at the fast food places.
I did hear the McPlant burger was on the way.
Yeah.
Confirmed this. I hear this is like the Beyond Burgers coming soon. So I don't know. We'll see. Oh, that's great. Anybody else?
Add a little to what Grace said. I'm Leticia. I'm from Brazil, and I'm a transfer student at Oglethorpe doing business. And McDonald's in Brazil, it's really good. Like the meat's better, the cheese, and they have different flavors. And every friend I've had from here that went to Brazil say the same exact thing. So we would go. We don't eat fast food like weekly. It's something we do like maybe twice a month. At least my family. And we go like to hang out with our friends because it is a good fast food place. In here, the only thing I'll get is like Big Mac because it's very similar to the one back home. But another thing that was very different to me was the size, because the drinks here is just so big. How could anyone drink a liter of Coca-Cola every time they ask for a drink? That's just way too much, and the amount of ice they put in it too. So
And free refills, so you could finish that whole liter and then get another one. No, that's the portion sizes I've definitely heard before. That's a good example. Yeah, good. All right. Well, if there's anything else, we can always circle back to this question for sure. I think this will keep coming up. Let me switch it just slightly. And are there been any big differences between like your home country and specifically academic life? Like I know this college is maybe new for some of you, but do you feel like the structure of a class is different? The way that teachers teach, is it different? The way you interact with classmates, is there anything kind of curious, surprising, unexpected? Cassandra, do you want to start this time? Do you have any thoughts on that one?
Yes. So hi, I'm Cassandra. I'm majoring in biopsychology and I'm from Moldova, which is in Eastern Europe. And yes, when I first came here, it was surprising that you actually get to choose your classes. At home, there's like about 12 classes that you have to take every year. So whether that's foreign languages or math or even biology, chemistry, you don't really get a choice whether you get to take them or not. And here, my counselor, the first thing that she told me was, which classes would you like to take? So that was really surprising to me. And I like it, that you don't have to take something that you're not necessarily interested in, or maybe you're not as good as, but you can focus more on something that you know will help you in college or in future careers. And same thing is about college. At home, you don't get to choose your courses in college either. Whatever major you decide to go, you're stuck in that major for the next 4 or 6 years, depending on the program, like a medical program. Here, you have the flexibility to switch majors if you feel like it's not as appropriate for you, not appropriate, but as useful for you, or maybe it's not necessarily something that you want to pursue after college. Same thing with classes. And here there's a lot of fun classes you get to take too, that are just, other than just being educational, they help you maybe think outside of the box, and outside of the very strict curriculum that you take towards your major, you can kind of explore outside of it.
What's an example of one of the fun classes?
One of the fun classes, let's see, I saw that there's things like abnormal psychology, that's not necessarily goes towards a major, but you can take it if you wanted to, or even classes like women's studies or classes about LGBTQ communities, which is not something that I have a lot of knowledge in, maybe the science behind it. There's a lot of areas you can try and take courses in and explore, or film studies, media. I feel like there's absolutely everything from science and STEM courses to art, and it's just, to me, that's really interesting.
Nice. And some good specific course shout outs there too. Well, good. Anybody else, any thoughts? Like, are there big differences in the educational academic culture or the style of courses?
Yeah,
I would also like to add Greek life. We don't have Greek life, and Greek life is an experience too.
Okay, let the record show Greek life is also on the list. Okay, good. Grace, what were you getting started with?
so like university in Australia, like you have your lecture and then you have your tutorial. And so you learn the stuff in the lecture and then you go into smaller class sizes like throughout the week. And you sort of about like 20 students, and then you talk about the lecture and you go in more in depth about it. And like your like syllabus for the year is very straightforward and it doesn't change at all. Like you have, from the start, you have like 3 essays for the semester and like 1 presentation. And like I found here that they're very like, they change it like depending how the class is going. There's not like this one standard that they have to meet. So they're a bit more lenient here, I feel, with like the syllabus.
I'm sure that kind of adaptability and flexibility has probably been seen even more so this semester, right? That we've had so many changes that maybe rigid structure of a syllabus that we might be used to in some contexts has had to, be adaptable. And so have we, obviously, too. Yeah, great.
Yeah, I'd also like to add something like, especially for like, STEM majors. The main difference for me was like, coming from the British curriculum, it was the metric system, like you be doing like math and like you see something in feet and inches and you're like, how do you, or like when you talk about like 2 cups of something, you're like, how do you measure a cup of sugar or something, But yeah, that was the biggest academic change for me.
It's huge. Yeah, it's a big one. I think somebody help me if you know this one, but for Fahrenheit to Celsius, there's like a trick that I learned. I'm gonna mess it up, I'm sure, but I think it's 162340. And if you flip them, they're like the alternative. So like 16 degrees Celsius is like 61 Fahrenheit. Does that sound right? And then I think and then 28 Celsius, if you flip it, is 82 Fahrenheit. 40 Celsius is 104 Fahrenheit. That's the ones I remember. So if I remember those 3, I'm like, I can get close with the temperatures. But I know what you mean, Emeka. There's so many, like, when you've learned one whole system your whole life, and then you come here and everyone's using a different system, it's frustrating to say the least. Yeah, good. Anything else? These are great.
I just checked on Google and you were right. 28 is
okay.
So
thank you, Leticia, for being my fact checker.
And in Brazil is very similar to what everyone else said, especially Cassandra. You don't really get to pick your classes and all that. And also they're not as spread. So when you go to college in Brazil, you have to pick if you want to study in the morning, in the afternoon, or at night. And they select all your courses. So it's not as spread out as it is in here.
Interesting.
Something I'd also add is like the culture of like academic integrity, because we in our country, like things like citations are really not that important, and like we don't have that many strict rules about it. And like my friends, from what I understand, the same applies to university. And also like I found what Grace said to be really interesting, because I found the syllabus to be a lot stricter than I'm used to, because in our universities, the teacher basically kind of just, you're lucky if your teacher tells you that there's going to be exam a week before it happens. Sometimes you can be like dropped on you because like there's no specific, oh, you have to make a syllabus right now. So those two things are like very good changes that I really liked.
It's a good point, because I mean, the rules are kind of different, right? Like the social rules change, like how do you greet one another, but also the rules in the classroom are very different, and you have to learn them in each place. So it's a fair point. Citations, I know it takes practice for all of us. Well, good.
Oh, I also remembered another one.
Mhm.
Like the way you interact with a teacher is also very different. Because like from my like classmates, I hear that like there's like a strict hierarchy or something like from the way they speak. But in my experience, it seems so loose, like the way you're allowed to speak to your professors. Because like in our country, and especially because we speak in Russian and Kazakh, and those both have like formal you. So like, and that makes it so much more different when you're speaking to professors. And I just can't get over how less formal it is.
Mine's like the
I'll
opposite.
agree with that. Yeah, go ahead.
Mine's the opposite because in Australia, so you'll have your tutor who's usually like a PhD student in the subject you're doing. And so like they don't care what you call them, like they'll tell you their nickname and you can just call them by their nickname. And even when you like address the lecturer, you don't have to say like doctor or anything. You can just call them by their first name. So like there's less of a hierarchy there. And I found it so weird here that some teachers would be like, you have to call me Dr. Yada Yada. And I was just like, what?
That's so interesting. Okay, wait, that's a really good point. Just like show of hands, because we have Moldova, we have Australia, Kazakhstan, Brazil, Nigeria. Just show of hands, would you ever call a teacher or professor by their first name in your country? Okay, so Brazil and Australia. No, yeah. Would you ever interrupt a professor to like ask a question during a lecture in your country?
When you say interrupt, do you mean like just cut them off or like raise your hand up for it?
Oh, that's a good question. I was thinking like, yeah, like in the middle of a lecture, would you be like, excuse me, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Maybe. Okay.
At home, they'd usually just ignore you. They'd look at you right in the eye and continue talking.
Oh, related to that, I'm curious if anyone can chime in. How important is punctuality, like in a setting? Like if you're 5 minutes early, right when the class starts, 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late, does it matter? Or are there rules?
Yeah, in Australia, to your tutorials, they'll just lock you out of the class. Like they just lock the door.
At what time? Like 2 minutes after, right on the dot?
Like at the time you have to show up early. Whereas here, like everyone just shows up 5 minutes late. And I was like, but like that's when class starts. Like class has already started. Like you can't be late.
I mean, back home it depends on the professor or teacher. Like some of them will like punish you, you know, like you get punishment for coming late. While some teachers are like more subtle with it, it'll be like, don't do it next time. And then if you like do it next time, then you get punished for it. But yeah, there's a lot more discipline back home in Nigeria.
I want to add another thing.
Uh-huh.
Outside of what we have talked, in Brazil, we don't have this culture of leaving your parents' home to go to college. And I can see that here is very common. So all my friends back home, they're still in their parents' house, just studying some university close to them. And that's something I really like. I like being away.
Yeah, does anyone else agree with that? Because I've heard that, to me seems like it's probably more of the norm across the world to do so. Would you guys agree, or what's your experience?
For me personally, like it's very common for you to stay with your parents after college, and like especially in like if you're the single child, it's in fact considered like bad if you do leave. Like even after you finish university, you're supposed to still stay with your parents. And like in America, from what I've seen, there's like a lot more of the stereotype of like, oh, if you're still living in your, like the mother's basement stereotype. um while here it's like if you do leave, then it's like negative if you do leave your parents alone to live together rather than if you don't.
It's interesting because, yeah, like I'm from Georgia, right? And like I thought I was supposed to, I left the house at 18 and got my first apartment and did all this stuff. But then I lived in Korea for a couple of years. And some of my Korean friends that were the same age, they're like, no, you like your parents and then you save up some money and then you go like buy a house when you're 30. I was like, well, actually, that's a much better plan. I think that makes a lot of sense, but there is that cultural element to it for sure. Oh, okay. Well, good. Let me move on to the next question. There's a lot of good stuff here. What were you most nervous about before you came to Oglethorpe? And you could mention Oglethorpe specifically or the United States, but is there anything nervous about before?
I kind of talked about this, but the whole academic integrity thing, it's been a lot to get used to just because um, everything is so much more bureaucratical and like formal in a sense. Like the interactions inside classrooms aren't formal, but like the specific way you're supposed to write papers, or if you want to in Kazakhstan, like if you want to like I don't know waive a requirement for a class, you just come up to that professor and like talk to them. While here you have to go through the official bureaucracy of, oh, they have to waive this requirement through the university and all of that stuff. And I can think that's very like, and that's what I was nervous about because there's things that are considered very much like not an issue in my country that are considered like serious like breaks of social norms in America.
Back to those rules, right? There's rules everywhere. We just don't always realize it.
I wasn't worried about too much, to be honest. But I had like lived overseas before when I was a kid, like when I was a bit younger. So like I expected there to be differences and there to be like huge cultural changes. So I wasn't too worried about anything in particular.
I transferred to Oglethorpe, so I had some academic experience here before. But because Oglethorpe is a liberal arts, I was afraid because I knew there would be more writing, and definitely is a lot of writing, but I actually enjoy it. I was afraid my writing wasn't going to be enough, but so far I've had professors help me and other students tell me like what is expected from the professors. So it's something I adapted well.
That's a good point. And I think it's scary sometimes, like especially as a freshman, like I have to write this many pages, like this every week and all this. But I think if you look at it in the longer term goal, it's like, oh, I'm going to be a really good writer, next semester or next year or by the time I graduate. And that's a skill you can take to any job, right? Like if you can do good research, if you can synthesize, information and like form a good argument, that's a super beneficial. Well, good. What do you guys think of classmates, or what did you think of your peers? And I know this is a kind of a very interesting time to ask this question as we're all, isolated more or less virtually, but have you found like, is making friends or have you noticed any differences there? And you could bring up, amidst the pandemic and virtual learning, but what do you think about that?
For me, it was quite easy to make friends because I'm on the soccer team. So automatically like have teammates that I can hang out with. But like in the classroom, I found something that I did find a bit weird was just how casually everyone dresses. Like they would show up to class in like sweatpants and just like sweaters. And I was just like shocked. I was like, you're leaving your house. You need to look nice, at least put on like a pair of jeans or something. I found it so weird that they would just like show up in something so casual, like something you would wear at home.
That's a really funny one. I've heard that from a few people. That's a good one.
Yeah, I'll agree with Grace. It doesn't have to do with the question, but another thing that I found was interesting in America. Every time I wear a long dress, it's something I do a lot back home. Just, I don't know, I'm lazy. I don't feel like picking clothes. I just wear a long dress. Where are you going? Why do you look so nice? It's just a long dress. So that is definitely something that I had to adjust to. And now I'm all for sweatpants and sweatshirts. So
the cultural adjustment of buying sweatpants. Got it. We'll put that in international orientation next year. Buy sweatpants. Yeah, okay.
And Oglethorpe's a little different because I haven't been in campus. I joined in during the pandemic, so I've only been online. But I used to study back in Alabama, and we had a lot of sororities, and everyone would just wear giant t-shirts. So I don't know how it is at Oglethorpe, but buy giant t-shirts. It's always like a few sizes bigger than your normal size.
Yeah, they all wear like the big t-shirts with like the shorts, and then they wear like their flip-flops or something with it, or their sandals.
The fashion rules too, man, it's everything. What's something that you really miss from your home country? Well, I guess Alex, you're still in your home country, so this could be an interesting one. Or what do you think you will miss the most when you come to the U.S.? You can approach that from a couple different angles, but what do you think?
For me personally, I don't think I'm not the type of person you get very homesick. And when I was outside of Kazakhstan, I never really missed it. One thing I wouldn't necessarily miss, but I just like to have in the US is like if I travel, I'll be traveling on public transportation. And I have tried public transportation. It's not good. So the thing I'll miss the most, I think, is the public transport. And also, like, I'm probably gonna regret the pricing of everything because in like the soda costs as much as the water in some places, and I was like, and that seems so bizarre to me because here it's like the water is like almost 50% less. So those are the two things that I won't necessarily miss, but I'll want in the US.
Good point. Yeah, and like Atlanta specifically, because if you go to some cities, I think if you go to New York, you're going to be fine on public transport. But here, we have public transportation, but unfortunately, it's just kind of limited. Like instead of doing the spider web trains across town, we have like this line and this line. And if you want to go anywhere else, you're kind of out of luck. That's a good point.
I miss good coffee and cafe culture. Like in Australia, good coffee is like a must. You can't open a new place without having like a good cup of coffee, and not like the percolated stuff they do here, but like espressos and like cappuccinos, lattes, that sort of thing. It's really hard to find a good one. Like Starbucks just does not suffice.
So like cafes in general in the US you've been to just don't have the same kind of
No, I'm not sure if it's like
items or
the beans they use, or they don't measure the temperature of the milk or something, but it's just,
Well,
it's not the same.
so Grace, you have to open up a Australian cafe after graduation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I could list a lot of things, so I'll just keep like the top 5. Food, people. I really miss, like, it's easier to make friendship in Brazil. That's something I've noticed in here. Here you can know a lot of people, but making friendships way harder. Public transportation, definitely. I was so happy to come to Atlanta because I was like, oh, I'm finally gonna have some public transportation, and no, it's nothing like back home. And walking, I miss walking. People don't really walk here, and I feel like I'm being judged every time I walk. So my ideal place would be if I got the United States and just brought my family and all the food and the public transportation and the free healthcare, and then it would be okay.
Okay. Sounds like a pretty good plan. Get with the city planners in Atlanta. These are good. Okay, this is a question that kind of gets at the heart of a lot of this today is what kind of things do you wish your professors and classmates knew about international students in general, or about, people from your areas of the world specifically? Alex, you told me a really good one recently with the time. Can you explain that? I thought that was a great point.
Okay, so I had like an exam, right? And I was like sitting there for an hour waiting for that exam to happen. And I emailed my professor, but he didn't see it. And then I looked at my Discord with my classmates and I saw that their time moved. And I didn't know about that. So they went from like 10 hours to 11-hour difference.
Time change.
Yep. And that I wasn't aware of. And like that isn't a thing in Asia. I won't speak about other countries or continents. And I was like, it was so confusing to me. Why would you, like, it's time, it's linear. Why would you just change it?
Well, it's such a crucial point because when you told me that, I was like, oh, of course, that's like such a huge thing for planning everything. And I can't believe I didn't even think to note it, just because it's just such a just, I don't know, American cultural thing. It just happens and everyone just changes their clock. And then a few months later, you change it back. And, but yeah, that's inherently very confusing, especially when you're tuning in from another time zone anyway. Yeah.
Mine is to do with like flying. So I had to go back to Australia like in the middle of the semester last year. And I'd like told my professors in advance and I was like, yes, I'm gonna need this like week and a half off. And they were like, why do you need week and a half off? Because I was going for a wedding. And I was like, because it takes 2 days to get there and then like 2 days to get back. Like they just couldn't conceptualize how long it takes to get to Australia. And it's like on the other side of the world. Like it takes a long time.
Yeah, yeah, that's I've done the Atlanta to Seoul, South Korea flight before, and I know Australia's even further. So that's a ways.
I can only speak for myself, but for me, something I really wish they would understand a little better is that I learned English about 4 years and a half ago. So to this day, I'm still having some difficulty, and I have to try at least 3 times harder to keep the grades than any other classmates in my class, or maybe not all of them, but I know I have to try harder. And I know for a lot of international students, they have to try harder. So I'm not asking them to do anything special for me, but maybe just understanding that it can be a little harder for an international student to understand some topics, because sometimes they would assume we learned something in high school, but in my case, I didn't. A lot of the books they talk about, or I don't know, people that we study, I didn't see them in high school. So sometimes I'll have more questions than other students.
Sure. No, and my background's in language teaching, but I'm also a language learner. And that's so huge just because even though obviously completely fluent in the language, but the cultural reference points, like even if let's say I spoke like fluent Portuguese and go to Brazil, but then I haven't seen all those movies. I didn't watch that TV show growing up. I don't know that region or that joke. And then like that's just, and then take the language part. It's like, I use different words than friends that live in California just because I live in Georgia. And then you're talking about just a whole other side of it. So yeah, that's huge. That's huge.
Something I'd add is I agree with Letitia about some of the things. Like, I recently was talking to one of my classmates, and I told them that I hadn't seen Gremlins. I had heard of them, and the look of pure disappointment. It's as though I like killed their puppy or something. It was funny. But another thing that really annoys me personally is they have this kind of like I studied English since first grade, and my teachers were Americans and people from Britain, right? I know I have a very good English, but anytime I speak with people, I oftentimes get, "Oh wow, your English is so good," and it, like I know it is. It's like from this place of I didn't know it could be so like that annoys me so much. Like
Yeah, I worked really hard for it to get to this place. I know it's good.
exactly, right? Like I know they get it, they take it, they mean it as a compliment, but I wish they'd understand that it isn't.
Something I need to compliment everyone here for is that I've had a lot of faculty people in other schools talk to me like I'm dumb. They would speak to me like this, and that's something I don't see at Oglethorpe, and I really like it because we know how to speak. We might have some difficulties. We might need a little time to think of a word because we forgot, but you don't really have to talk to us like this. So that's something I really appreciate here.
Yeah. And I mean, and it's not to say that those kind of experiences won't happen to you in Atlanta or in Georgia or in the United States. That would be probably disingenuous to say, but I think it is a testament to Oglethorpe just having a lot of students from a lot of different places, right? It's pretty cool that you can walk around on campus and meet the entire world. And I think that helps, like from all angles.
Yeah, because when I was in Virginia, like I remember getting marked down just using different grammar and different spelling for different words. And like, that's not even comparable between like speaking an entire different language, but it was like, it still hit a bit hard. And like the Oglethorpe environment just feels a lot safer as an international student than it did in like where I was before.
And again, like for this very reason, like think about all the cool perspectives we just talked about. that you're not going to get if you just talk to like a classroom full of people that lived and grew up in the same neighborhood you did. It's not to say those people are bad. Like you get along and you learn a lot from them too, but just to hear all these perspectives, it's kind of what college is for, right? Christina, you've been a great participant. Do you have any questions for our panelists?
Sorry, the TV's on. But no, I just want to say thank you guys for sharing about y'all's cultures and y'all's and how y'all felt when y'all came to America for as international students. Like, I hope I can do study abroad sometime soon so I can visit every one of your countries because y'all make it sound fun.
Hopefully in 2021 we can, open up the international travel again, right? Okay. Well, guys, how about this? Do you have anything else you'd like to add? Just like either something that we didn't talk about, or do you have any? You could flip it. Like, what's advice if we travel to your country? That's always a good one. We talked about all the rules changing when you come here to the U.S., but if Christina and Marissa and I were going to travel to Kazakhstan, Brazil, Australia, what would we need to know? Like, what are the rules we need to know?
Main thing, don't smile that much. Like, everyone smiles so much, and I find it so bizarre. Like, because here it's like, if you're smiling that much, people are going to assume something's wrong, or that you're faking it, and they won't like it. But here, like, when I was in the US, and then when I talk to my classmates, or when I hear my professors give lectures, they sometimes manage to speak while smiling, and it's a different skill. I don't understand it, and I'm just so impressed by it. Like, I feel like your cheeks must start hurting at some point.
Alex, that is such a great point. And I do it because, again, I'm from the South, Southern hospitality. You talk to strangers, you say hello to everyone. And when I lived in Korea, I was trying to practice my Korean. I probably told some of you this, but I would be talking to everybody like small talk. Like, I'd go to the person that works at the convenience store and like in Korean be like, hey, how's it going? Like, are you having a good day? Weather sure is cold. And my Korean friends are like, don't talk to strangers. Like, that's weird. What are you doing? And I was like, but that's what I do in Georgia. It's and like the smiling, like what the rules are. It's a really, really good point.
I would say don't mention Crocodile Dundee if you come to Australia. And don't try an Australian accent, because they will just they'll give you the dirtiest look and just walk away. Just be you when you're there, and they will judge Americans for being Americans, because that's just what we do.
And I'm guessing this is because you've heard countless Americans reference Crocodile Dundee.
Oh my gosh. Even even the professors, they go, that's not a knife. I was just, I had never seen the movie before I came to the US, and everyone was talking about it. And I was like, what is this film?
There you go. We've all got our blind spots, and that's probably an American one, is don't just reference the first movie you think of, person you just met.
I think for Brazil, I'll just give some simple ones. First, we don't have free water in restaurants. You can't just get free water. That's something I really miss. I wish we had that in Brazil. You could just go and ask for water, but you can't. Also, don't ask if we went to the Amazon. I've never been to the Amazon. It's very away from where I'm from. I'm from a big, big city. So don't just go. If you want to go to the Amazon, it must be very nice, but not every Brazilian went to the Amazon. And try every food you can think of, because we have some really, really good food. So be open to experience different foods.
Top three Brazilian food recommendations. What do you got?
Okay, we have coxinha, which is a fried dough with chicken inside. And in Atlanta, if you go to the Brazilian bakery, it's great. So you can get it in Atlanta, and it's actually pretty good.
Marietta, Georgia is kind of a little Brazil.
Love Marietta. Love it, love it, love it. So anytime you want to try Brazilian food, go to Marietta. It's steakhouse. You have to go. It's amazing. In Brazil is even better. And I don't know. We have natural juices. I miss natural juices. Açaí. Açaí is also very good. So I don't know, everything. I love everything. I can't just pick 3 things from Brazil.
Alex, once you do finally get to Atlanta, you'll have to go to Oglethorpe and then go straight to Marietta so you can get some Brazilian food. And then
Yeah, and Christina mentioned last time I was making some Brazilian carrot cake, and it was really good. Brazilian
Okay.
Brazilian cake's really good. So, and they also have good cakes in Marietta. So if you're in the Atlanta area, go to Marietta. Brazilian bakery is like really, really good.
all right, do some Marietta shopping this weekend for a Brazilian Thanksgiving. There's the pro tip for today. Good. Well, guys, that might be a good stopping point. Unless Christina or Marissa, if you have anything else to add or any other questions for our wonderful panelists today.
No, I was just going to say this has been really fun, and I look forward to other conversations like this. Our Fridays have been really fun to have this type of discourse, but the questions that you answered were things that I've always wanted to ask, but I always felt like they should just come out organically. So this has been really great to get a window into your experience here as an Oglethorpe student, but also learn a little bit more about your homes, some of which I visited, but not all. So it's been lovely to hear your perspectives on the culture you bring to our campus. It's one of the most rewarding parts of working in international education are these types of conversations. So thanks for letting me be a participant observer.
And a big thanks to Anna Melo, who got everybody together today and prepared these questions, who unfortunately couldn't be with us today, but hopefully this will be the first of many. I love these conversations. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, this was very fun. Thank you for inviting me. Well, I thank her, but
We'll do more. We will definitely do more of these for sure.